We've attempted to beat Pikmin 2 without a single enemy dying, now it's time to try it on its spiritual successor, Pikmin 4. The rules are the same as Pikmin 2 and are simple: don't kill any enemies and get to the credits of the game. If an enemy dies, it's rewind time. Oatchi and the Pikmin are allowed to die though. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in comparison to Pikmin 2, where we may or may not have been successful in that video. We start off with the tutorial and we are Captain Elmer and we have our trusty dog Moss. We gather up a few Pikmin and head up to this table.
Alright guys, I want to thank you for watching my Minecraft Let's Play. Be sure to smash that like button and hit that
So we aren't exactly off to a good start, as the tutorial makes us kill an enemy right off the bat, and we will also have to kill 3 more enemies in the tutorial. So no, it's not possible, but we can at least see if we can beat the story mode excluding the tutorial stuff. Well, we have to continue anyways, and also this might be a really hot take, but considering he was the main marketing gimmick from Pikmin 4, compared to the Oatchi trio and especially Olimar, Growlgungus is just the worst Pikmin protagonist. He has no charm and always feels like he doesn't want to be there. Well, the tutorial is pretty standard. We get Oatchi, who isn't at his full power yet, but he may come in handy. He's usually overpowered in this game, but we probably won't be able to utilize any of his good attacks, and we'll probably be focusing on his carrying abilities. We continue on with the tutorial and rescue Colin, who gives us a quick explanation of how the mission menu works, and yeah, this is that kind of stuff I was talking about. He just ruins the mood completely. We get our 3 casualties I mentioned earlier, but thankfully this should be the last mandatory kill. Well, hopefully it is. I guess I could pull a not me officer. The yellow dog I have no affiliation with completely mauled those children for no reason, but that would be lame. Even though I didn't press the A button here, Oatchi did all of that by himself. Anyways, the rest of the tutorial is pretty standard, and we can move on to the first real area. We also have the hub world, and considering we had issues managing Pikmin numbers last time we did this in Pikmin 2, starting off with a few pellets every day will certainly come in handy. The Sun-Speckled Terrace is the very first area, and it's also the easiest in Pikmin 4, so we shouldn't struggle that much. However, we do immediately get introduced to a worrisome mechanic, and that is the Florlick system. You don't start with the 100 Pikmin limit in Pikmin 4, you have to build up to it by collecting Florlick buds, and we start off with a mere 20 Pikmin. When one of these strategies we utilize in Pikmin 2 was called the Sacrifice strategy and consisted of letting our Pikmin get devoured while they were carrying treasures, this decreased Pikmin count is really bad. Collecting Florlick buds will be our top priority. The opening bit of this area is pretty simple. I collect some minerals or whatever the fuck they are called and grow up a few more Pikmin. Our main foes here are these dwarf bulborbs, and we also have to deal with another mechanic. In Pikmin 4, if you throw an amount of Pikmin that are equal to the weight of an object, the game will prevent you from throwing any more for a good second, and you can no longer auto-lock on or even lock onto that object. The sacrifice strategy usually requires that we max out objects' weight, so this is also really bad for our challenge. Especially if the object is next to an enemy, as the game will prioritize aiming at the enemy. You have to kind of veer your cursor to the side of an object to prevent the game from halting your throws. Despite a small amount of casualties, we successfully grow up a few more red Pikmin and it's onto our first real cave. We can avoid this dwarf bulborb by throwing our Pikmin at the side of this wall, and after it's destroyed it's into the Last Frost Cavern. I've mentioned the auto lock on in passing, but I haven't talked about how bad it is in general for this challenge. While we are trying to live out our peaceful lifestyle, the auto lock-on is like a demon whispering in our ears telling us to kill them all. It's not the worst for this challenge, as you will quickly learn to fully lock onto treasures so the auto lock-on doesn't decimate some random enemy. It's probably at its worst in the early game because most of the enemies are killed instantly by the auto lock-on, whereas later in the game it really only becomes a mild annoyance instead of a reset causing feature. Then after dealing with that we get to see some amazing Pikmin AI. They didn't even do stuff like that in Pikmin 1. Now it's time to unlock Ice Pikmin, not these ones though, as if while Pikmin are engaged in combat you cannot whistle them until that enemy is killed. There thankfully are some Ice Pikmin in a vase, so we can finish off this sublevel just fine, but we do have a lower amount of Ice Pikmin than usual. The rest of the sublevel is smooth sailing, with the only enemies being a few male shear grubs. Carry the objects with either Oatchi or the red Pikmin so that we can keep our Ice Pikmin safe and sound. We also collect our first Florlick, increasing our Pikmin count to 30. When we are out of the cave we are faced with a problem you might not have thought of. One of the biggest features to Pikmin 4's map design are multiple landing bases. The maps are much larger compared to past games, so you obviously need several bases to make collecting things more efficient. However, when we get to our second base there is an enemy there and the game will not let us access this landing base until this enemy is killed. With this challenge we only have access to 2 landing bases and they are both at the very far ends of the map, away from the vast majority of caves and collectibles. This will lead to much longer hikes while collecting things, and we also have to avoid much more enemies while collecting things as well. I do a slight trick here with the power of gyro aiming with my gyro sport Nintendo Switch controller, which definitely isn't a PS5 controller connected to Ryujinx. We can throw Pikmin up near this bag, whistle them, and dismiss them to have it push it early, which immediately grants us access to the crackling cauldron. The reason I'm in such a hurry to get to this cave is because it gives us yellow Pikmin and we need them to get our second Florlic Bud. The cracking cauldron itself is really easy. You can just walk past the fiery blowhogs, and the shearwigs have some absolutely odious aim in this game. I also kinda wish there was a way to turn off these on-screen interruptions. Listening to Grolgungus ask me to look for his car keys every 5 minutes got really annoying. At least a good thing for these challenges is that the caves in Pikmin 4 hand out wild Pikmin like candy and even let you go past the Florlic limit. So basically every cave just lets us cultivate more Pikmin, which is good for this challenge. This cave was easy, and the rest of the day is spent slowly carrying treasures back to the first base. We can ignore basically every enemy in the overworld except for a single dwarf bulborb, so it's very easy, and we also get another Florlic Bud and the yellow onion. Before we start the next day, I upgrade Oatchi's carrying weight all the way up to 30. This makes Oatchi very useful for carrying objects, as even if Pikmin are getting eaten, it is virtually guaranteed to never stop moving. He also grew in size, which fully unlocks the maps, and gives us the ability to ride him, which we have to use to get to our third cave, the Hectic Hollows. This cave is also really easy, and is the last important cave for this area, as the other two feature 0 enemies. The most difficult part is building the structure, as sometimes the dwarf bulborb would eat a Pikmin, but that's about it. This mini-boss is so easy to ignore, I'm actually starting to wonder if ignoring him in a normal playthrough would actually be faster. Our good luck quickly runs out as we have to build the Bridge of Doom. The Pikmin have to build this bridge by walking all the way back to the first base, getting a few pieces, and walking back all the way back to the bridge. This is slowed down even more by male sheargrubs and a bulborb consuming our bridge builders, and this section took several minutes of basically just standing there and hoping that Pikmin didn't get eaten. After that's built, we have to do our 5th and final cave, and as stated earlier, the final 2 caves feature no enemies, and then we unlock the final base. This base is practically useless aside from collecting 3 treasures. We also have to deal with another annoying mechanic, and that is if an enemy hits Oatchi, he and the entire Pikmin will completely munt the enemy. This is helpful in a normal playthrough, but for this specific challenge it is really annoying. I didn't purchase the charge horn from Russia, and I probably should have, as it would have made collecting heavier objects more efficient. Anyways, after collecting those 3 treasures, I move our ship back to the first base and end the day. Our goal for the next day is short and simple: get the blue onion and defeat Captain Olimar. The blue onion puzzle is basically the same as a vanilla playthrough, as there is only one fiery blowhog near it and we can just completely ignore him, and now we have access to blue Pikmin. Aside from glow Pikmin, these are the last type of Pikmin we'll be unlocking for this playthrough. I grow up a few and then head to Olimar. The game usually wants you to build a bridge to Olimar that is next to a bulborb and several male sheargrubs, but if you go back to the blue onion location, you can walk past this gap in the wall and skip the bridge entirely. You can actually skip all these battles and still get the rewards, but I decided to play through them all as I thought doing them without killing any enemies would be an interesting challenge. Unfortunately, it turns out that this was instead an uninteresting task, as even when playing with a handicap, I still completely obliterate Olimar. After that, we slowly collect our goodies and it's time to tackle the next area. The blossoming Arcadia was pretty easy to deal with. You can get 2 Florlic Buds really quickly here, one's outside of our base and the other is in a nearby cave, so I collect a few treasures and multitask building a bridge while getting to that cave. This cave turned out to be one of the more difficult ones to deal with. To start, we had to deal with the fearsome skitter leaves. That's a harmless enemy, you mutt. What was that for? He didn't even do anything, Oatchi just mauled him for no reason. Let's try that again, but without Oatchi. I was double locked onto the treasure. Why did they go after the leaf? We get it right the 3rd time and then we have to deal with dweevils in the 2nd floor. These guys were annoying for this challenge in Pikmin 2, but in Pikmin 4 they are the spawns of Satan. It's not even the enemies that are bad, it's just all of the annoying quality of life features getting in the way, which makes dealing with them an absolute nightmare. I eventually found that the strategy is to add Pikmin carrying the treasure and then rush the dweevils with a Pikminless Oatchi to make them drop it if they steal it. The geysers for many caves are locked behind boss sublevels and usually behind boss gates, which require killing the boss to open. This would be absolutely catastrophic for this challenge, but Pikmin 4 lets you leave every cave from the pause menu with absolutely 0 consequences, and you get to keep all of your goodies as well. The other 2 caves we do here are pretty lackluster. We get a whopping 1 sublevel finished in the Kingdom of Beasts because the 2nd floor has a crystal wall that we need to use rock Pikmin to break. Now there are rock Pikmin in this floor, but they're all fighting enemies, and as stated earlier, you cannot get wall Pikmin in combat until that enemy is killed. We can get more done in the Sightless Passage, but there is still another roadblock here in the form of fire walls that we need to kill enemies to extinguish. For anyone thinking that we can use the Scorch Guard to walk past it, we can, but the Pikmin will not carry objects past these fire points unless they are extinguished, so it'd still be a roadblock. We have access to 2 bases here, but the final one is blocked by an enemy, and this section also requires us to build several bridges, which would be basically the same thing as the Sun-Speckled Terrans, but way worse. The Poco, or in this case Sparklium, requirement for this game is way less strict than Pikmin 2, so I can actually afford to ignore a large section of the map this time. I decided to finish this area off in one day by doing the Olimar battle, and this one was really hard. For Olimar. We have now access to the next area and are definitely finish this area in one day, and can definitely explore the next area tomorrow. What, do you think I lied? The Serene Shores is our second last area and it's pretty brief, with our main goal being to reach the 7000 Sparklium limit. We immediately start with another Olimar battle, which yet again is extremely easy. This guy has the absolute audacity to start explaining to me what a big lead is after he got his score quadrupled. We can reach our 7000 limit by collecting treasures in the overworld, and for a nice change of pace we can actually unlock a base that is located next to the majority of treasures. While I was collecting the treasures I had quite a few mishaps. The Pikmin brutally killed a poor burrowfish while bringing back the Rhythm Heaven reference to the ship. If I had some patience, I could have waited for the tide to sink, which would have neutralized every single burrowfish in that section. Then we had to deal with some horrible Pikmin AI again. The Pikmin encounter a Hermit Crawmad while carrying a rubber ducky and decide to just stand in front of it and let themselves get eaten. Then they decide to do the exact same thing with a Toady Bloister. To finish off the Sparklium, I just go to a cave and only have to explore 2 suburbs of it to finish off the limit. Now all we need to do to unlock the final area is to do night missions to free Bernard. It turns out my absolute haste to finish off the Sparklium limit, I never realized I never unlocked Yanni, who you need to have rescued in order to do the night missions in the first place, so that meant I had to scramble around looking for a castaway, which we thankfully only needed 1. The castaways are unlocked in a predetermined order, which is not affected by location, so it didn't matter where I got one, I just had to get one anywhere. Well, it turns out I did lie, as we're back in the blossoming Arcadia. My quest to find a castaway here turned out to be a massive failure. I had already gotten the castaway in the Sightless Passage, so I went back to the Kingdom of Beasts and used a bomb to destroy the wall that prevented us from progressing beforehand, only to immediately be greeted by another wall in the very next floor. This one requires that we kill the Empress Bullblacks to open it, and I don't need to tell you why we can't do that. I head all the way to the Drafty Gallery, which is the only cave we haven't explored, and I met with the exact same problem. There's a castaway in this floor, but it's inside an enemy. I was starting to get worried that I would have to kill an enemy to progress, but thankfully I was able to collect a castaway using an exploit in the Serene Shores. This castaway usually needs you to open a boss gate to collect it, but you can throw 10 yellows to uncover it and then use Oatchi's Rush to get in the water so that blue Pikmin can collect it. After that we have finally unlocked Laurel and now have access to the night missions we need to beat the game. Now you might think that these night missions would be really difficult because you typically have to kill enemies to protect the Luminol from being destroyed, and that is obviously going to be a grueling task to do without killing anyone. If you're wondering what crazy strategies I will be utilizing to beat these, it's the precise and extremely hard to pull off trick of standing still, losing, and then using the get help button to have Dingo beat them for us. Doing this still lets us get the required collectibles even if we did absolutely nothing. This also leads to some really engaging gameplay. This is pretty lame, but it's the only consistent way of doing them. If we didn't do this, I'd say the strategy would be to farm up minerals so we can buy a bunch of freeze bombs and then just spam them to stall the enemies, which wouldn't be too fun either. Now at this point the game was very upset that I had basically almost reached the finish line without killing any enemies, so it throws a pretty nasty curveball at us. After beating the first night mission, I am unable to select any more aside from the first one. You do not earn anything from replaying missions, so we have to play a different level, and the reason we can't play any different levels is because we don't have the 2 bases unlocked in the first area. Despite us having several bases unlocked in the other 2 areas, we cannot progress without unlocking these 2 bases. This means spending an extra day in the Sun-Speckled Terrace, and more importantly, as stated earlier, these bases are blocked by enemies, so we have to add 3 mandatory kills to our run, right at the tail end of our challenge. While doing this, there are tears dripping down my eyes and my hands were violently shaking. I recall putting my hand on my head and just saying, I can't do this. So no, you cannot beat Pikmin 4 excluding the tutorial without killing any enemies, but don't click off yet. I decided to keep playing to see just how much further we can get. I finished the 2 other night missions without killing any enemies, and we unlocked Bernard and also the final area. The hero's hideaway was definitely the shortest area of this challenge. I originally thought it would be pretty interesting because you have to collect 3 cards to figure out the combination of these safe, and we also have Moss who can steal our Pikmin. And while she doesn't die if you take her out, I was originally planning to keep her alive the entire time. Well, while building a random ledge, I went to the location of the safe and started fiddling around with it, and it turns out you can entirely brute force the combination, which I found out by accident. Most games have checks and make sure you know the code to like a safe or something before they let you open it, and I always just assumed that was the case here as well, but it turns out you can just guess it on a whim, which is pretty cool. Like every other Olimar battle, this one is really easy and not that interesting, and I made a complete fool out of him again. After that, we are finished Pikmin 4. So in conclusion, you can get through most Pikmin 4 without killing any enemies. We did have to kill 4 in the tutorial entry to unlock night missions, but for 99% of the playthrough we didn't kill any enemies, so I still consider this an absolute success. Unless someone finds a way to throw Pikmin through the walls in the tutorial like in Pikmin 2, the current 7 enemy casualties count will probably stay the same. Overall, this challenge wasn't that fun compared to Pikmin 2's one, not like the Pikmin 2 one was even that fun in the first place, but most of the difficulties I had for this one either came from waiting for things to be done, or just mechanical quirks such as the auto lock-on and weird Pikmin AI. It was still interesting enough and a unique way of playing the game. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for high quality Pikmin videos weekly, and I'll see you in the next one.